Hello and welcome, my friends. It is time for part two of our interview, and yes, I really do like this shirt a whole lot with Mauricio Sanchez here at La Tortuga Loca. Before we begin, a couple of notes. First of all, thanking our friends at La Tortuga Loca for hosting us yet again as we bring fire football to you. This podcast where we take a quick glance or a deep look at what goes on in the soccer world here in our beautiful valley. Also, we do not want to forget our friends at Hoya Properties for sponsoring us this year, as well as our friends at NCW News and Ward Media, owners of the Kashmir Valley Record, where you go when you need to know. Before we begin talking with Mauricio again, we'd like to congratulate the Wenatchee High School soccer team on a fine season, finishing in the top four this year in 4A soccer. They're playing right now on the west side of the state. We would like to also congratulate Cascade High School. They qualified for state. And Kashmir High School, they also qualified for state. Eastmont High School qualified for state. Quincy High School qualified for state. So plenty of reasons to feel optimistic about the future of the sport in our valley. Now, Mauricio, welcome back. Thank you for being with us today. And speaking of high school, we stopped last time talking when you're just moving on to play for Wenatchee Valley College. And the team that you played in for Wenatchee Valley College, was it mostly just local kids or was it from all over the place?
The team, thanks again for having me. The team that we played and that we had, that I played with and had at Wenatchee Valley College, it was a mix of both. It was some of the Wenatchee guys, and half of them were either Yakima, Sunnyside, but that southern, central Washington region. But it ultimately all local, all Washington or central Washington grown.
Okay. And how much of it was, how heterogeneous was this team? Was it mostly Hispanic kids, mostly white kids? Was it a mix of 50-50? What was it like?
I'd say about 90% Hispanic,
Okay.
and then we had a few Caucasians, a few other ethnicities, but the majority was predominantly Hispanic.
How did that affect the relationships in the team?
There wasn't much difference, to be honest. I think I remember spending a lot of time with Mumia and some of those guys that had apartments here, Juan Viveros, and a lot of those guys that had their homes here. Sometimes their families would bring food, and we'll get together, and you see these kids that never had chile or any type of spice in their life before, eating with everybody sitting on that table. So there was never really that difference. I mean, if I can say, at least for me, how I experienced it, it could be a movie type of scenario, you know what I mean, where you have all these other people unrelated to you sitting on this table that kind of were brought together because of soccer.
Oh, wow. And what was it like for the watching? Because I used to work in Quincy, and one of the biggest hobbies of the high school kids there in Quincy was to invite the white kids to eat Mexican food and watch their eyes just begin to water. So is that the kind of things you did, or was it?
No,
okay.
No. We didn't go to that extent, but it was more open. It was an open invite, and it's like, what are you guys doing after training? Oh, we're gonna go meet at someone's house. We're gonna go have lunch or dinner because then we had training later on, and so everybody would just kind of come. So we didn't have any cliques. We didn't have any division or little groups amongst the team. When it was break time in between classes, you'd see the big group of soccer guys just getting together, and it was almost like a magnet. Sometimes it was the baseball guys. We did build that relationship because when we were playing, all these other sports would show up to our games and just kind of fill up the sideline, whether it was basketball, volleyball. But we did build that connection with other teams and coaches. And when it was their time to play, then it was our turn to kind of pay that back and fill in those chairs and those seats.
Now, that companionship, that togetherness, did the success build that togetherness within the team, or did the togetherness build the success?
I think it was all in steps.
Okay.
So putting a bunch of random guys together. Some of them knew each other because they were either together and lived in Yakima or somewhere down there. And then some of us that played together here, and then kind of put us all in a room, and then we started just connecting, and then that kind of built our strong team bonding that ultimately translated into success. And again, it was just kind of that mentality. It's like we know what to do. We know what to do. What our job is. We know what the expectation is. All we have to do is just go out there and do it. And there was no complaining. There was no nothing. You know what I mean? It was we had a mission, we had a job, and we knew that we had to do it.
Mm-hmm. So it wasn't a situation of we are a team doing the 90 minutes of the game, and then it's 11 cars for 11 guys, and they go 11 different places. No, you guys were together in and out of the field.
Yep, in and out of the field. Again, there was a lot of players that they had to make those choices. I think I mentioned to you last time about girlfriends because we, not only us, but the coach, obviously Nelson, one of the things he always told us was, if you're not good up here, right, you're having issues whether it's at home, outside of soccer, you're not going to perform. And so a lot of it, I remember seeing some of our teammates, either arguments or this with the girlfriend at the time. And it took them out of sometimes they would show up late. Yeah. And as soon as they show up late, then we knew why, and so they had to make that decision. It's like, this is a good time, or are you in it 100% or are you not? Yeah. And so things like that would happen. Yeah,
it's like Bill Alexander, the athletic director for Quincy High School, many years used to say, one about the volleyball team is like a breakup with your girlfriend is a 3-game losing streak. Basically, it's like it has an impact. It ripples. Now, the season after you guys won it all, what was that like? Did you guys have it in mind to repeat as champions? Did you have the same squad? Did you lose some players? Did you bring in some players? What was that like?
We lost the majority of them. Okay. For them, our championship year in 05 was their second year in community college, so they had to move on.
Of course.
But it was a huge year for a lot of them because they got recruited to go play at our 4-year schools, whether it's Oregon, somewhere out of state, like Oregon, California, within Washington State. It was a lot of opportunities that came from that championship. We had one of our good friends, Junior Garcia.
Junior Garcia, yes.
And so he got to play back then, which was a competition with the Seattle Sounders. I don't know if you remember.
I remember this, yes.
And he played against our other team, Vinny, right? Because we
Vinny Oliveira.
Together. And so he got the opportunity to showcase his skills there. So there was a lot of positives that came from that team in that year in 05.
Didn't juniors move on to play in like Central America somewhere or Mexico somewhere?
Junior spent some time in, I want to say it was Central America or South America. So he spent some time down there.
Yeah. So there was the possibility, and your teammates and you yourself could see the possibility. Okay, this could take us somewhere. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. By then we didn't have, a lot of us didn't have girlfriends. A lot of us didn't have kids or major responsibilities. So moving from community college to a 4-year, it was much easier. Mm-hmm. We had more liberty to do so, more liberty to kind of pursue that dream of, hopefully, by then we were 18, 19, 20 years old, pursue the opportunity to play pro.
And what was your dream back then?
I think up until then, all these small victories, like being a champion with WVC, was encouraging that dream to say, can I go farther? Can I go to college? Can I go play pro? And so after Wenatchee Valley College, that's when my family and I, we said, okay, I think we can try the idea of playing in Guadalajara, or at least trying it out. For me, it was more like, I want to say that I did it, even if they tell me no, but I know that I did it, not keep that regret.
Not have the regret.
I wish I would have, So it was more like, let me try it.
Yeah. And what was that experience like?
Oh man, it's learning. It humbles you. It demands a lot of that power of will. Like, do you want to be here? You have no friends. You don't know anybody. The only thing I had was my aunt, and I was a tough time too because my parents didn't have money. Again, I'm going with $600 in my pocket, and just the hopes of, hey, potentially they can keep me, allow me to stay in like Casa Club, which everything's free, and so that was my whole goal. And if it didn't happen with those $600 in my pocket, then I had to come back. And so I tried to push it as much as I could. I remember when I was in Guadalajara, my first couple nights, I had to sleep in the laundry room because I couldn't make it back to my aunt's house to be ready to go again at 6 in the morning. And so one of the utility guys that worked there, he's from a town close to where my family is in Michoacan. And so kind of created that connection, and he's like, I'll just leave the door open and you can just crash in there. It was nice. Everything was clean. You know, put everything on the floor and just lay there. And so I had to do that a couple nights. But it's those things that I'm sitting there in this room and I'm like, what's the need? You know what I mean? What am I doing here?
Is it worth it?
It's kind of pushing you mentally. You're like, okay, well, I came for something, and that's what I'm here for.
Holy cow.
Mm-hmm.
All that counts.
So that was about 6 months that I spent there in Guadalajara, and I started playing with Tecos, which was their subdivision. So we're talking about U18, U19s. You get to compete against the second division teams, and they move players up and down. A lot of it, still is, but a lot of it back then was money, right? So how much can you afford to pay a certain coach so they can, you can make your debut? And so back then, again, my parents didn't have a lot of money, and so the amount of money that they were asking for me to debut with the U18s, U19s, or even the second division was crazy. I mean, we're talking about $5,000 just so you can get some playing time, which required you to, in order for you to do this, this is what you need to do.
And it was just a accepted practice. This is what needs to happen in order for
it wasn't talked out in the open.
Okay.
It was more of we're sitting in the bench. We know you have quality. We know that you can play, but
we need that cash.
We need a little bit of that for us too. Which is sad to say. You know what I mean? But it's like for players, anybody that wants to be a pro, you can either take that and say, okay, I'm done. Or you can say, okay, sure, this is here. I'm going to go on to my next one and see what the next team says, which is what I did. After those 6 months, I couldn't afford to pay $5,000 to debut. And so I had to, pivot. And one of my good friends here, his dad is from Tecalitlan, Jalisco, which is where the mariachi is born, right? And so they had back then a really good team. I think they still do. Which is Teca. And I moved to Tecalitlan for a couple months to see what that was like and see if I could jump the boat somewhere else. And so that was another experience, right? Going from Guadalajara to a small little town like Teca. It puts you in those situations and you ask yourself, like, what am I doing? But, I pushed through. I did what I had to do until I hit those walls that it's like, I don't have the money. I don't have the financial means to pay.
So they hit you up for money at Teca also?
No, not at Teca. Okay. Teca, I mean, they were amazing.
Okay, straight up.
They treated me like family. They didn't ask for money. Okay. I stayed with one of the players' families. They provided shelter, food. They didn't want money. They just said, "You're here. We'll treat you like a guest and like a family." And I mean, they would feed me. They would wash my clothes. They would do all of these things like a family would. So I was very appreciative of that.
And what was it like on the field?
Playing with them?
Yeah.
I mean, the level between Teca and the U18s, U19s that I was playing with Guadalajara, I mean, it was the same, if not better. Okay. I mean, we're talking about a third division team, right? Teca. Yeah. And so the level was pretty much the same. During that time that I was there, we did a lot of tournaments. So we flew out to different places.
Within Mexico? Okay.
Yeah, to go do these tournaments and play against, Fuerzas Básicas from like Pumas, Cruz Azul and other places like that, which was really neat to gain that experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, ultimately hit those walls and made a decision to come back and then pursue college.
Now, before we move any further, Fuerzas Básicas, that's the youth divisions, right? That's
yeah. So it would be anything under the first division. So it could be your second divisions, and it could be your youth teams, U19s, U17s, and that sort of thing.
All right. Well, we'll explore what happened after that particular stretch in the old country when we come back right after this. Don't worry. Welcome back. We're here with Mauricio Sanchez taking a good look at his career. It is rare, I have to say, that we have a chance to talk to somebody who has done it. Who has done it not just in this valley, but overseas, in college, semi-pro, high school. Somebody who knows the game at every facet of the game and who has played it, who has done it. and that is why it is such a privilege, and that is why we're so delighted to have him, and that is why we're so delighted to be able to bring this to you. We ended up talking about your return from Mexico. What were your feelings back then? And it's like, okay, because you went there going, I don't want to regret this someday. When you came back, what was Mauricio Sanchez feeling? It was like, okay, well, we got it done, we did it, or was there a sense of what might have been?
There's that moment. I think it took me, I want to say, a good month, and there's that moment of, you're a little depressed, you're in your feels, they just said no to something that you've been working towards your entire life, and so it takes a little minute to adjust and kind of ground yourself. For me, the idea initially was like, I'll come back, I go straight to college, and that was that. But I found myself returning back home and coming to my parents, which is, for most of us, it's kind of like that grounding space, right? You found your values, you found what you're looking for, and kind of restart again. And so that's what I did. I spent about a month at home, and I was still working out. I was still staying in shape. When I came back, it was around May, and I stayed in shape throughout summer. And then I want to say around, a month later, so around June, I reached out to the coach at Evergreen State, John Perderman, and I was like, I'm ready if you need me. And so we had already previously talked about the possibility of me attending the Evergreen State College. And so I reached out and I said, I'm back. How do I make this happen? And so I stayed training, I stayed active, and then the mission was to go to Evergreen State.
Okay. Now, for those of us who don't know, Evergreen is in Lacey, no?
Evergreen's in Olympia.
In Olympia, just north of, just south of Lacey, and this is the NAIA.
This is the NAIA.
What made the Gooey Dogs the right choice for you? Why did you go with the NAIA, considering what you had said that when you left for Mexico, you had teammates going Division I, Division II, Division III. Why the NAIA?
For me, it was, again, I go back to the moment that we were going through, at home, and is how do I save my parents money? How do I kind of exchange the level of playing for the opportunity to attend college and get something out of it? And so for me, it made sense. For my family, it made sense. I'm always going to be thankful with John Perderman because of the opportunity and obviously the scholarship money that he was able to provide. That for me, now I talk to kids that I coach, and it's like it's such a benefit, for you to ask the questions to say, is there a financial, incentive for me to come to this school? Are you able to help me if I play, sports? Because every college has their budget, right? Budget for soccer, for anything else, and so they're able to use that budget to bring in players, whether it's covering room and board, covering books, covering tuition, whatever that is. I mean, it's a huge help. So for me, that's like, this is it. And they had a great team. Some of the players coming in I played with or against, and so we knew that coming in together, we could make something happen. So that's kind of what led me to go to Evergreen.
And this is just a guess, Mauricio. I freely admit, please set me straight if I'm wrong. No problem. Javier will edit it out later. No, he won't. He's saying that he won't.
It stays.
That how much of a help to your soul, to that feeling of depression, was to be able to compete again at such a level, to compete for Evergreen? Did it help to be on the field and competing and having a purpose?
It was almost like it became almost like let me show you how do I say this? Let me showcase my skills and ability, regardless if I was told no a month ago.
Okay.
That I can maintain that level and play. And so my next idea when I came back from Mexico was, let's do college. Mm-hmm. Let's continue knocking doors around the west side of the state.
Somebody's going to say yes.
Going there. And so for me, that was my next motivation. That's like my next goal.
Okay.
It's like, can I do something with now being here back in Washington and going to Evergreen and then playing with all these other teams around the state? And it's like, I know there's going to be someone that knows someone that can see me play and say, let's see if we can give this guy an opportunity. So that's kind of what got me back into that rhythm and being able to compete. I could say at the highest level that I could.
Yeah. And how many years were you with the Gooey Ducks?
2 years.
And what was what were those 2 years like competition wise?
Evergreen, one of the things, they're not known for their sports. They've never been that competitive college that is on the higher rankings of any sport for that matter. It's all about art, some of the things that you can do with their social work and any other things, aspects of normal life that has nothing to do with sports.
The creator of The Simpsons went to Evergreen State, Matt Groening.
Macklemore, the artist,
he did?
graduated from Evergreen
I didn't know
well.
that.
And so for us coming in, we had to change a culture.
Okay.
And that was part of kind of the conversations that we had with the rest of the teammates, including Coach John. And it was, we need to change that culture, turn it around. Like, Evergreen's not known for soccer, but our mission in 2013 was is how do we turn it? How do we change that culture into soccer? Okay. And so for us, it was obviously competition, coming in, doing our thing, and trying to win games. And that's what happened. We started out really well. We got to a point where, we're doing much better than we've done in the last 10 years as a school. And that's kind of what gave us a cue, like, oh, dang, we can compete. NAIA, the last best team that they had was in 05. And that's where there was a couple MLS players that came out of that team from Evergreen. Joey Jurston from Tacoma. Yeah. He went and played with San Jose Earthquakes, after that successful year. There's a couple other ones that stayed and went to like Seattle U and other, professional teams around the state, around the country. And so for us, it's like, okay, someone did it before, so we can definitely do it. That year, 2013, is when we do make a difference. It's, we went like 12-0, our first season together. We played the conference championship final. The second year, we were there again, knocking the door in playoffs. We got to playoffs. And so we kind of initiated, and I feel like it was that initiation of a change of that culture at Evergreen. And now you see them competing. They have a USL2 team now, so they're able to recruit players for the USL2 that potentially could stay in college, or vice versa, right? As a college, I utilize the USL2 to bring in players that they can play over summer without having to go back.
And what's that team called now?
Oli Town.
Oh, the Artesians. Yeah,
the
all right.
Artesians.
Yes, all right. Now, you mentioned 2013. We skipped over a part. Because you went from Mexico to Evergreen State. Where do the Yakima Reds fit in? Because that's where I met you.
So in between the Yakima Reds, then there was Wenatchee FC. So I know here in Wenatchee we had the semi-pro. We were playing in the EPL WA, and so I spent some time playing here in Wenatchee under Javier. The college guys that I played with at Wenatchee Valley College made the connection for me to go play in Yakima with the Yakima Reds, and so that's how I ended up playing in those places. But that was in between, the transition. Yeah, Wenatchee Fire was another one. It was in the time between that transition between Mexico and Evergreen.
Okay, and this is where I get fired, folks. In case you're recording this, all right. There are so many leagues popping up. Mm-hmm. And some of them have managed to stick around to create, even if it's a toehold of tradition and success. Why is it so hard for a team in Wenatchee to succeed, to stay, to be part of something long lasting? Because we've had teams here. Mm-hmm. We've had the Alliance, we have the Wenatchee FC, we've had the Fire. They come, they go. They come, they go. What needs to happen for a team like those, like even the Yakima Reds? Mm-hmm. So it's not a Wenatchee thing. The Yakima Reds were around for a long time. They were very successful, and then bye. Mm-hmm. What needs to happen with you, given your experience with a very successful team, the All Stars, for a team to stick around, to have what in Spanish called permanencia, to be able to stay in time? Mm-hmm. And create something, create a tradition.
It's the foundation, I think. Obviously, for anything that you do, whether it's a business, your family, right, your marriage, anything that you do, it's the foundation. Like, what's it built on? Mm-hmm. And so it has to be built on with the right people, I would say. Most important than anything, it's who are you working with? Who's helping you build that dream or get to that dream? Are you sharing the dream, or is it just one-sided? So it's putting a team together of individuals that think alike, that want the same outcome, that they're not driven by money or, flashy or success, or I want to appear here, I want to appear there. It's, the mission, you know what you need to do, and you just work at it. You mentioned some of these themes personally, right? With the Wenatchee All Stars, from zero to where we got, built the ins and outs through trial and error. And at the end of it, I think that I can say it's that foundation. That's what makes whatever program, whatever business is, the people that surround you where you start, it's the ones that propel you to continue going, just like any business would.
Mm-hmm. And what allowed your time with the Wenatchee All Stars to be so successful? Was that foundation that you were talking about?
It was the implementation, the foundation, that bringing in the right players. Because at the end of the day, that's who performs. That's who's going to do whatever you're teaching. They're the ones that are going to put it into practice. So it's bringing the team together. Are they good players? Are they players that you could potentially utilize as role models, that they're going to go out into public and they're going to do what's expected, or what's going to represent, whether it's the organization, the team, or their families for that matter. I mean, we live in such a small community and valley that something happens tonight and everybody knows by tomorrow. And so, going out to bars, going out to doing this, how you treat cashiers at our store. So all that matters. It's just so many little factors. And so building that team, I had to look into that. Is, how do we give people second chances, right? Do we give people three chances? So it was building that. Once I had that team to compete, then the rest would just kind of guide itself. And it was creating plans, creating systems of operation, creating all those things. So we knew what to do. All we had to do was just plug and play. And so that's how we built the Wenatchee All Stars. That was my vision in the beginning, how we would kind of create it surrounding the athletic side of things and the business side of things. It was basically that, to create that foundation.
And for a guy who's been within the confines of the field since he was 7. Mm-hmm. How steep of a learning curve was it to switch and put on the general manager hat?
It was sort of like that moment of you becoming, whether it's an organization or a team owner or whatever it is, you're leading someone. For me, it was pulling back all those different styles or philosophies of coaching, of leading, leadership, and everything else from all the coaches that I've had along the way, and use what worked for them, what worked for that team, and then just put them all together with this particular project. And that's exactly what I did. I just gained everything from all the coaches that I learned things from, utilize all the benefits of that, and then just combine it with, you can say, my philosophy, the way that I see the game, and we just put it together.
And what made that so successful, that combination of this is what I know, this is what I've learned?
I think within the valley, this is another thing that I'll say is we're an untapped market for soccer players. Everything that's from this side of the mountains to Spokane, Central Washington, even farther down. I mean, look at Montana. Montana, they have semi-pro teams. They don't have a pro team, but all those athletes that are lost in between, Cle Elum and Spokane, it's a ton. So we're an untapped market. The ability for us to play the game, we know we have it. We've played it our whole lives. We played it together. It was just a matter of putting it together. Everybody knowing their roles. Don't get out of that system. Stick to that system that works. But making sure, for me, was that the players were buying it. That they when they came part of that team, that it was going to be a winning team. We were not competing just to have or be part of a semi-pro team. We were competing because we wanted to win. We wanted to make a statement. We wanted to also kind of ring some bells around the state to say, hey, eyes over here type of thing, And so that's how I implemented that system, that philosophy, again, with the help of, supporters, people that came out, coaches like Mike Osborne, Tronson came out and did a couple sessions. So a lot of the training sessions that I did, it was open to coaches that wanted to come and put in their 2 cents. And I invited people and say, hey, can you run a session? Can you come do this for me? I don't know how to do this. It was my first gig running at that level. and that I wanted to be and have the guys be the most prepared that I could going into playoffs or a championship.
If you had the chance, would you do it again?
Absolutely, 100% in a heartbeat. Under different circumstances, my wife would say, but I would absolutely do it. I mean, the fulfillment and the benefit to provide that to our valley is huge. I mean, the things that I do now, coaching and anything that I do with soccer is, I always say this, and I kind of sound like a broken record, but it's like, for me, it's like, I just want to be that person that I wish I had when I was growing up in Wenatchee. No one talked to me about FAFSA. No one talked to me about college applications. No one talked to me about how to do, not a resume, but a letter to write, to a college and say, these are the reasons why I want to go to school there. My high school advisor, which I won't mention the name, but she told me, just give up on school. Just go work, go do your thing. There's a lot of good jobs out here. The community needs you. Why are you going to college? And so for me, it's like, okay, can we change that? Can we change that culture? Oh yeah. Can we change that culture? Can we provide, now we see all these kids, going off to D1 schools and playing with all these big teams. It's like, they did something. Can we teach that to the rest of the kids so it just follows? You know what I mean? And then from there on, the motivation is, can we get one of these guys to play pro? And as soon as we get one into those big leagues, whether it's MLS or the rest are going to follow. Because those kids that are going are making it to, D1, Seattle EU, talking about like Edgar Leon, his brother, others that are going to like Hawaii and all these other colleges and schools. It's going to be so much easier for us as coaches or parents to say, how do we make this connection? How do we send my kid to go to college with you using soccer as the avenue? And so that's kind of like my mission where I'm at now.
So why do you have to give up All-Stars? Was it the work-life balance that was?
Now you're going to put me in the spot. Part of it, I want to say that it was that broken foundation. Eventually, one of the pieces fell off, or you could say one of the pieces wasn't synced with what the main purpose of the All-Stars were, and so that's where it kind of fell off. One of the things for me is trust. And, to be able to trust you, whether it's financially, with any aspect of any business, because at the end of the day, it was a business, The All-Stars were not a money-making machine.
No, rare is the team that is.
It doesn't happen. It goes the other way around, right. My wife can attest to this.
And my wife, too.
Is we're putting $5,000, $10,000 a season in our credit cards. That eventually I had to find the means to bring in money as fundraisers so I can essentially pay off my credit card. You know what I mean? And so it was a lot of that. And when I think trust is broken or it's lost, regardless of, what happened, it's really hard for me to come back and trust again, in that matter. When you make a mistake, like some of the players, throughout the 3 years that I was there, they did, is something that doesn't affect the club. And that's something that I said from the beginning. Whatever you do out there, make sure that it does not come and reflect bad on the club, because that's the biggest thing. Everything we do, we have to do it for the club. And there were a couple of players that had mistakes. And for me, it's easier to say, okay, you messed up, you acknowledge your mistakes, does the rest of your team want you back? And if the team says yes, then I'll bring you back. But, at this level as leaders, and team owners or organization leaders, there are certain things that just can't be given a second chance. And so for me, it was that part of that trust.
Mm-hmm. Now, switching gears a little bit, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll learn more about Mauricio Sanchez, the coach. We'll be right back after this. All right, folks, we are back with Mauricio Sanchez, and one of the things that sticks out when one looks at your career is that you are now coaching, you're training. How hard of a transition was it to say, okay, my time on the field is done. I got Mrs. Sanchez now. I got a couple of little ones, but I want to coach now. How hard of a transition was it to give it up?
It's hard. It's a hard transition, and I think I didn't get to play at the professional level, and I can see how hard it would be if I would, between hanging up the boots at a competitive level and then transitioning to coaching. It's hard. It's very hard. It puts you in a situation where you're like, can I not do this anymore? But part of it helped that, obviously, like you mentioned, my wife, my kids. So with kids, a lot of those things change, your priorities, your interests, like what do you want out of life? And because now you got three people that are depending on you. And so that kind of also helped. It's like now I'm looking at to teaching my kids, right? The game and the love for the game. And so that was kind of what made it a little easier having Luca and Nico around and seeing them that they enjoy the game and they want to play it. And so for me, it's like, okay, that's my focus now, right? So building them not only just as players and to teach them the game, but also all these other attributes that I learned from other coaches, which is pick up after yourself. If you see a kid that's crying out on the field because he got hurt or he got the ball kicked at their face, can you stop what you're doing and go check in on that kid? You know what I mean? So that's kind of where I'm at now. Is that dad vibe?
And how much of that is repeating what Dad told Mauricio when Mauricio was that age?
Oh, a lot of it. A lot of it. I mean, we're still stealing the work ethic. It's about getting up in the morning. Did you do your bed? And, at 5 years old, again, I think about where I was at 5 years old and what I was doing. And so doing, Luca doing his bed every day in the morning, I mean, that's a privilege, right? Than working or doing something else. And so little things like that, pick up after yourself, do your bed, fill up your brother's water bottle, go find your shoes, your cleats, we're going to go to practice, that type of thing. I remember growing up and I knew when I played, I knew when I had practice. And if I had a game on Saturday morning, I was setting up my bag on Friday evening. And so, a lot of those things that as coaches or parents we don't teach our kids. A lot of the times we don't think about it because we're so busy with live work and everything else. But those little things do count. You know what I mean? I come across a lot of players and even at the semi-pro level where we go and play a game away and it's like, I forgot my shin guards. And in my mind, I was like, I can't comprehend why they would forget their shin guards. If when I was your age, I had everything ready the night before. I would even sit there and clean my cleats, you know what I mean? All of these other things. And so for me, it's kind of teaching that and making it almost like a habit. And so they're able to absorb it. My kid is, now he knows that. What else can I teach? And so I do the same thing with the kids that I coach.
Now, Luca is...
Five. Yeah, he's going to be 6 in October.
And Nico is?
Yeah, Nico is 3.
3.
He's going to be 4 in June.
But is that the age group that you're teaching, or do you go beyond that? Because I've seen videos of you on internet, and those guys do not look 3 or 5. They look, you know. Yeah.
So I start with Luca's age group. Okay. I do a little bit of some lessons with Nico's age group. I mean, for me, honestly, Sebastian, spending my time with my kids, sharing the passion of the game, I mean, that's fulfilling to me. You know what I mean? Spending that time out on the field. We're spending time together that I know a lot of parents nowadays wish they had. You know what I mean? And for one reason or another, they have to work. They have to do double shifts. They have to work outside of Wenatchee or anywhere that they go, and they don't get to spend that time. You know, they drive a bus or they drive, a semi, and they're going all over the U.S. And so for me, I can say that it's almost like a blessing, to be able to utilize the game that I played my whole life to teach it to my kids. And at the same time, I'm gaining that time with them on the field. And so I love that, I appreciate that. And again, I feel like I'm blessed to be able to do that.
Now, here's something that we were talking about during the break is that you do not teach goalkeeping. You teach the game as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
what is that like?
Right now with my company Soccer Pro, I teach every aspect of the game, from goalkeeper to field players, mentality, confidence, attitude, game planning, video analysis. I mean, I do it all from beginning to end. Recruiting, connection with other teams, with colleges. How do we prep you to do your letter of interest for a certain college, to send those emails? What does the email contain? When you reach out to a coach, what does that say? Because, I'm a big believer in first impressions. And so, you're sending that email, you want to make sure that your email is different than everybody else's. And so it's going to catch that coach's eye to say, okay, this guy's different. Secondly is the human aspect of things. Obviously for me, I was able to play in successful teams. I was able to coach a successful team. And picking up all those little things from each one of those is, can I teach those items to my athletes about how they behave, how they carry themselves, to be an addition to a benefit more than a liability. And so I also teach that side of things, to come and bring in your portion into a successful program versus coming in and expecting that the program will provide for you.
So you want them to go in there wanting to learn rather than going there and being like the big man on campus feeling. You want them to learn to fit into that program.
The adaptation of things. A lot of the players nowadays, and they don't have the proper coaching. I'm getting some of these kids that are 14, 15 years old that don't properly know how to trap a ball. They don't properly know how to make a pass, how to pass to a moving target, which, it's understandable. A lot of the coaches that we have in the Valley, which I'm very appreciative of, I did volunteer work and coaching for almost 15 years now, where I didn't pay, I got paid, I didn't do it. It was all just my time given for free to teach the game. And so I'm appreciative with a lot of the coaches that we have, because the clubs that we have in town, they do their best. Obviously, financially, they're not where they would want to be able to invest in coaches, meaning, can the coach teach the game? And it's more so parents stepping up to teach their kids, whether it's like, let's kick this ball. I mean, it's better than nothing, right? And so there's a big difference in the talent that we have versus the coaching, that we have. And so for me, I'm a big believer of education, coaching education, and to teach our coaches how to teach the game. And so we'll be able to bridge that gap between ages at an early age. I see clubs around town that are offering academy services and this. I'm like, but you don't have a coaching staff to teach the game. A lot of it, you can say it's to fill in the roster. It's to potentially fundraise. And everything that matters is either the money or just another number to add to our roster sheet of a club. And so for me, it's like, are you doing a service or are you doing a disservice by creating this, in many ways, opportunities to teach the game, but how much are you investing to really teach the game or creating bad habits? And so that's kind of where I'm at right now. And I don't have an issue with, getting players that have played, let's say, as a defender. And now, this new team that he tried out for, and it's the A team, they want to use him as a midfielder. And so that's part of my job, right? It's to build that adaptation in their head, because once they play club, they go to high school, the system of play between club and high school is different. As a high school coach, I see potential in you as a defender, but guess what? You have a really good movement off the ball, you have a really good shot, you have good vision of the game, I'm going to play you as forward. Or as a midfielder. You go to college, it's going to be completely different. And so one of the things that I teach kids is also to be able to adapt. And part of it's like, you're not going to play this position your entire career, so you have to be able to adapt. I go back to Miguel Viramontes, the head coach for Wenatchee High School. So he played under me for about 3 years with the Wenatchee All-Stars, and he was an all-time attacker. He was a striker. High school, when he was a state champ, he was a striker. When he went to Evergreen, he was a striker. His whole life, he's been a striker. When we had Jose, our center back with the All-Stars in 2023, injured because he tore something on his knee, I believe, I had to make an adjustment. And so my adjustment was to say, hey, this kid is amazing with his feet. He's strong. He's smart. He sees the game. Here's my new center back. And so I made Miguel from a striker. I made him a center back. And guess what? I mean, he was probably the best center backs that I've ever seen. And so for me, it's teaching that to kids. It's like, you're not always going to be a winger. You're not always going to be a striker. The other side of it, too, is, there's ages and you're forming players, right? But you can't form a player to strictly limit him to training the goalkeeper position, especially when you're under 12, under 13. You know what I mean? You want to expose them to everything, just kind of like my dad did.
Yeah, you
right?
want to make him fall in love with the game.
Exactly. Learn how to play with his feet. Learn what every position needs to do and what the role is. And that way, when you do come into play in goal, you already know what they're supposed to be doing. You're the director back there. You're telling them, hey, move there, move here, because you have the ball in your hands. And so I teach a lot of that too.
Now, using these last few minutes of our show to thank you, first of all, for being with us and to submitting yourself to this interrogation.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Taking a quick meta look, with all the hullabaloo about pay to play and about the NCAA perhaps switching to a different schedule that would go have games across the calendar year. Is it possible to hope and dream of watching a U.S. national team, the men's national team, make an impact at a World Cup sometime in our lifetime?
Oh, 100%.
Really?
100%.
Okay.
I think, I mean, for me, which is again, you know, one of the obstacles as a soccer country, you know, or state for that matter, is it's still a business, right? People still want their cut. People still want to get paid. It's still a business. It's a business. But I think the U.S. Soccer Federation, the Mexican Soccer Federation, they're not thinking about tomorrow. They're thinking about, how do I gain today? How do I make more money? How do I do this today? I think that now they're starting to do it a little bit, but it's coming from people that are ruffling feathers. They're people that want to do something different. They're starting academies. They're starting traveling teams. They're starting showcasing or ID camps that people have never heard about before, where you have players like myself, whether they've made it pro or not, they're providing all these opportunities for kids to showcase, taking the middleman out, which is U.S. Soccer or, you know, Mexican Federation or MLS for that matter. Is now you're taking the product to the doorstep of the club. So, you know, we had some teams from Wenatchee that went to Spain. Freaking imagine, I mean, I think about it, like, if I had that opportunity, I'd be in Spain right now. But, you know, the thing is that there's people that are doing it in a different way that would potentially make more of an impact for them to be exposed to the game or the opportunity. But nonetheless, I think we have to do it here in our home first. For them, like I said earlier, you know, for them to be ready. Are they ready? If someone shows up today in Wenatchee from Club America or anywhere and says, hey, we're holding a tryout right now at this time, who's 100% ready to go try out? And that's what I'm trying to instill in the kids. It's like, you have to be ready at all times, because you just never know when you're going to get the opportunity. We go play, you know, in Seattle, whether semi-pro, whatever level that you're playing at, it only takes that one person to see you, and they're like, that kid has something, that has something. But if you're not ready to compete, you're not going to get the upper hand on everybody else. Everybody wants to play the game. Everybody wants to be a pro, you know, but you have to think about what's the difference maker for them to be able to be more visible.
All right. Mm-hmm. That was Mauricio Sanchez, folks. He's done it, he's seen it, he's coached it, he's done it all. On behalf of everyone involved, our producer and director, Javier Reina, our assistant, Edgar Reina, I'm Sebastián Moraga saying thank you for being with us. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure.